Welcome to Sage Audio. Today we're covering how to mix kick and bass, but first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Simple EQ separation. For these first 6 chapters, let's talk about how to mix kick and bass with an EQ. I want to focus on separating the kick and bass so that they blend where needed, but still have their distinct space in the mix. We can use a regular EQ to first observe the frequencies of the kick, where we can take note of the fundamental frequency. Once we know that, we can go back to our bass track and attenuate that same frequency, ensuring that the kick's fundamental isn't being masked by the bass. It's a super simple trick, but effective nonetheless. Let's listen and notice how there's room for both. Dynamic EQ separation. Let's do the same thing that we just did in chapter 1, but this time use a dynamic band on the bass track to attenuate that frequency only when the bass plays. This way the attenuation only occurs when the bass is present and also during the transient of the bass. Let's listen and notice that the transient of the kick comes through unaffected, but the sustain of the bass and kick blends. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button. It helps us bring you more videos. Inverse EQ separation. If you want pinpoint separation of the kick and bass and you have the Pro Q3, you can try this. Place the EQ on your bass, set the kick drum as the external sidechain, then match the bass to the kick by using the match function with the sidechain as the reference. Use the full 26 bands, delete the extreme ones, and then highlight all of them. Lastly, use the gain dial to invert the bands, making what made them match cause them to separate. Let's listen and notice how the two sound a lot clearer. External sidechain, inverse EQ. Let's try the same trick that we used in the last chapter, but introduce 2 important variables. First, I'm going to highlight all bands, right-click, and then make them all dynamic. Then I'm going to set the external sidechain as the kick, and on each dynamic band, I'll set the trigger for the dynamic band as the external sidechain, in this case, again, the kick. So whenever the kick hits, the dynamic bands on the bass will be triggered. Since we matched them and then inverted them in the last chapter, this effect will cause complex dynamic separation between the two. Let's listen and notice how this effect differs from typical inverse equalization. Only a small percentage of people that watch our videos are subscribed, so if you're enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Split EQ on kick and bass. Split EQ is an interesting plugin that splits the processing into transients and sustain, allowing us to control the EQ of the signal in a time-based manner. With that in mind, let's take the fundamental of the kick and dip that frequency on the bass using a transient band. This way when the kick hits, its fundamental will cut through, but the sustain of the two will blend. Let's try this and notice if it's similar to our dynamic EQ trick from chapter 2. Benefits of making kick and bass mono. With an EQ, we can make our kick and bass mono by taking a high-pass filter, placing it on the side image, and cutting out low frequencies. The benefits to this include making the low frequencies much more mono-compatible and reducing muddiness caused by phase cancellation. It's not always needed or the best sounding depending on the genre, but let's listen to our kick and bass being made mono. Combining harmonic formations. For the next 3 chapters, let's look at how we can use saturation when we're mixing kick and bass. Each saturator and distortion plugin causes unique harmonic formations. If we know these formations, we can ensure that the kick and bass receive harmonics that don't overlap. For example, I'm going to cause even ordered harmonic saturation on my bass so that it stays in key, and odd for the kick. This way both are saturated but amplified differently. Let's listen and notice if the two become more distinct. If you're enjoying the channel, join the community with the link in the description. Modulated transient and sustained saturation. Next, I'm going to try saturating the kick's transient while saturating the bass's sustain so that each one is saturated and made more prevalent, but at different points. I'll insert a saturator on my kick and on my bass, then create envelope followers that are linked to the drive dial. By adjusting these followers, I can affect the ADSR of what triggers the distortion. So I'll use a quick attack on my kick and a slow attack, longer sustain and release on my bass. Let's take a listen and see if it improves the balance between our two instruments. External sidechain saturation. Let's use the Saturn II again, but this time only on the kick, and with the bass as our external sidechain. Once again, we'll create an envelope follower, but this time set the trigger for it to be the external sidechain, or the bass track in this case. Once we link it to a parameter, the amount of distortion and its timing will be dependent on both the envelope follower and whether or not the bass is present. In other words, the drive or other parameter is only triggered when the bass is present. Let's listen and notice how this helps separate the two. In time, bass ducking. For our last two chapters, let's use compression to separate our kick and bass. Let's do some simple kick bass ducking, but time the compression to a 16th note so that we get the bass to return to unity quickly and in time with the track. I'll place the compressor on the bass and then sidechain the kick. Then I'll divide 60,000 by the BPM to get a quarter note and then divide it by another 4 for a 16th note and then set this time as the compressor's release. Let's listen and notice how quickly compressing the bass when the kick hits gives the kick's transient more room. Transient and sustained compression. Last up, let's compress the kick and bass differently to affect their timings and in turn, separate them a little. I'll use an optical compressor on the bass, which gives us a really smooth and dense sound. Then I'll use an aggressive hard knee compressor on the kick. The DBX 160 and 1176 are good options for this, but I like the punch algorithm of the FabFilter Pro C2. Let's take a listen and notice how the smooth bass and punchy kick complement each other. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.